My childhood and early teen years were spent in Poland under very oppressive communist regime. In the early 80s, starting on December 13th, 1981, Poland was under martial law for the next 3.5 years. There were limitations to our travels, there were roadblocks, military police was on every corner, and censorship was running both the media and the art. They were telling us what books we can read, what plays can be played in theater, what poems can be printed. Nobody could ever imagine at the height of the martial law that in just a few years Polish communism will be but a faint memory. We didn't have a civil war in Poland to abolish communism. We didn't have a military coup to change the regime. We had a simple union workers offer non-violent resistance on the streets, in the factories, in the churches. That non-violent resistance eventually led in 1989 to first in Eastern Europe free democratic elections. And just like that, communism in Poland was but a history. It is amazing how most of lasting changes in history happen not by military forceful actions, but by peaceful, non-violent resistance. You all know the name of Lech Wałęsa and Solidarity, but he is just one example of great leaders who offer non-violent, peaceful resistance to terrible regimes. Think of Nelson Mandela and South Africa. A change in that regime happened not unlike Poland, without firing a single shot. And peaceful, non-violent resistance led to a change of apartheid regime, just like it did in Poland. Think of Dr. Martin Luther King and his civil rights movement, also in a non-violent, peaceful way to resist oppressive, racist structures, has led and is still guiding us towards building a better society here in our country. Think of Mahatma Gandhi and his fasting and non-violent, peaceful resistance, which has led to abolishing hundreds of years of British occupation of India as its colony. All these changes have lasting effects. Unlike many other revolutions or coups that happen by force, with violence, because revolutions usually end up eating its own babies, whereas non-violent, peaceful resistance leads to a lasting change, because it changes minds first. It changes hearts first, and then leads to a change in structures of societies. And speaking of Mahatma Gandhi, who never was baptized, who was born, raised, lived, and died as a Hindu person, Mahatma Gandhi, in his memoirs, writes that for 30 plus years of his adult life, he would start his day with reading the 2 or 3 chapters of Gospel of Matthew that we know as the Sermon on the Mount. It starts with the Beatitudes, blessed are the poor in spirit, and goes on to end with what we heard today. You have heard eye for an eye, tooth for tooth. I tell you, turn your other cheek. Give to those who ask of you. They ask you to walk with you 1 mile, walk with them 2. Mahatma Gandhi read these chapters from Gospel of Matthew. He read the Sermon on the Mount every single day for 30 plus years to inspire his non-violent resistance to a very violent and unjust oppression of the British Empire. These words of Jesus inspired him, they inspired Lech Walesa, Nelson Mandela, Dr. King, and many, many others to fight injustice not with AK-45, but with turning the other cheek, with offering non-violent resistance. And yes, there have been martyrs along the way. Dr. King, Father Popieluszko in Poland, and many, many others, unknown people, who turned the other cheek and became the seeds of new growth. But without those martyrs, without Mahatma Gandhi and Mandela and Popieluszko and Dr. King, there would be no lasting change in our societies. Unfortunately, Mahatma Gandhi never became Christian, and when asked why, he said, "I like your Christ, I just don't like your Christians." You see, we have these wonderful, inspiring words of Jesus that tell us how to live our lives, how to make change happen, and yet we fail to live them in our daily lives. We still live the rule eye for eye, tooth for tooth. If you hit me, I will hit you back. If you talk about me, I will talk about you twice as hard. If you tweet about me, I will tweet about you 3 times as hard. Eye for eye, tooth for tooth. We Christians live as if Christ never gave the Sermon on the Mount. We pretend we don't remember about turning the other cheek, giving the coat away, walking 2 miles. And that's why people like Gandhi are not becoming Christians. Because they like our Christ. They don't like our actions. I was truly blessed to witness the collapse of the communism in Poland in 1989. I, my parents, my grandparents could never imagine it would happen in our lifetime. But it did happen. But not with the force of military, not with our militia standing up to the government, but by peaceful demonstrations, non-violent opposition. If it could be done in Poland in '89, in India in the 60s and 70s, in South Africa, why can it be done here today? It can. As soon as we take the words of Jesus for the Sermon on the Mount, it can happen here as well. Let us make sure that the next Mahatma Gandhi will not only like our Christ, but will also like and admire our Christian actions. Amen.